What is going on, Locks Mob, and welcome back to the Week 12 edition of Addy's Action. For those of you who are new here, welcome. For those of you who are returning, thank you for finding your way back to this video. Really means a lot that y'all have taken a liking to these videos. But for those of you who are new here, my name is Addy. I am the host of Addy's Action. I am from LocksDFS.com, where we provide premier optimized lineups for every sport you can think of. NFL, NBA, college football, college basketball, hockey, soccer, golf, anything you could think of, sports bets, we got it all. So if you're looking for those, hit us up over there. And if you're new to this video or haven't already done so, please do follow me on Twitter. My Twitter's on the screen right now. It's @reallyaddy. You can go ahead and tweet me anything, DM me anything y'all want, any questions you may have about NFL, NHL, NBA. I play them all. So go ahead and hit me up there, interact with me over there, and that's where I can sort of answer all your start-sit questions or 1v1s, 2v2s come Sunday morning or whenever for any sport. And again, for those of y'all who are new here, this is more of a GPP tournament-oriented video where I discuss most of my favorite tournament plays on DraftKings.com for what this week will be Week 12 of NFL. But I make one of these videos every week. So if you do like it, go ahead and hit thumbs up. Subscribe, leave a comment. As always, we are doing that giveaway that we do every week, where we just sort of go through our comments on all our videos and we pick sort of the most active, the most like our favorite comments really, and we give that person a choice of either a free NHL, NBA, or NFL season pass. All valued at NFL is down to I believe $150, and NBA, NHL are priced at $300. So great values, and all you got to do is like this video, comment something positive, and go ahead and subscribe to the Locks DFS YouTube channel. With that all being said, I usually start this video by breaking down my last week's lineup, showing y'all which plays from Addy's Action made it into the lineup and how they did. So let's go ahead and do that. I got it pulled up for y'all right here. Let me see where it is. Lagging around. All right, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Here we are. So this was my team last week. As y'all know, if you watch this video, I am more of a... Oh, by the way, I'm back in New York City, obviously, as you can see by my surroundings, and that's the reason I'm wearing a beanie in this video. I know I'm going to get comments on it. I always get comments on, like, what I'm wearing, like whether it's DMs or tweets or something. I always get someone saying something because I'm usually wearing, like, a hat or something. But I'm wearing a beanie in this video because it is freezing in my apartment right now. I mean, in New York City, like some apartments get like too much heat. Some apartments get like no heat, despite how much you hit up your super. And I'm more of the latter, as you can tell. So after this video, I will be going to get a space heater so that I can be warm in this apartment. But yeah, with that being said, let me go ahead and show you guys my lineup. As you guys know, I am a one lineup kind of guy. I only play one lineup, and that's for cash games and tournaments. And this was that lineup last week. So I was sitting in a smash spot going into the 4 p.m. games, like the afternoon games. Like I had T.Y. Hilton, who was low owned. This is in the $150 tournament. And so that's what like these ownerships are for. In cash, they were even higher, obviously, or lower. I mean, for the tournament plays, like T.Y. Hilton was, I believe, lower than 18% in cash. But T.Y. Hilton was a guy I talked about on Addy's Action last week, and he obviously smashed. I also talked about Carson Wentz and Alshon Jeffrey as guys that I really liked. They did not smash, and they are actually the reason that I did not cash this week. That brings me to what I think 9, either or I was 8 of 10, so 8 of 11 in NFL this year. So not bad. But yeah, this week was an L. Carson Wentz just didn't do his thing. Alshon, I mean, I have lots of reasons for that. I won't go into all of them. But they're not excuses. They're legitimate reasons as to why, like, he did not do his thing. Alshon Jeffrey, similarly so. I talked about on last Addy's Action how Marshawn Lattimore has not shadowed a wide receiver all season. That changed versus the Philadelphia Eagles with Marshawn Lattimore shadowing Alshon Jeffrey. So that kind of kept him from getting there. And then a few chalk plays that busted: Deion Lewis, Amari Cooper, all that good stuff. Ricky Seals-Jones. He only ran like barely any pass routes. It was a weird week for him where Jermaine Gresham outran or ran more routes than him and received more targets. And then David Johnson, another chalk play, who just did okay, but he did lose a 56-yard touchdown to a holding penalty. And I believe he lost another chunk yardage play. But regardless, so this was last week. Not my finest week, but I'm very excited for this week 12 that we got coming up. I think there are some smash plays here that are definitely going to go low owned. So that being said, let's just jump into this slate. All right, so we're at quarterback right now. As always, we start with the quarterback position. And as always, I will identify who I think will be the chalk at this position. Also, if you guys see me looking over here, it's because I'm back in New York and I do have my monitor again. So I got all my notes and stuff sort of pulled up over here. So that's where I'm looking at. And looking at some of the ownership projections, I see Jameis Winston coming in as the chalk of the slate right now. He's sitting at 6,000 on DraftKings. Lamar Jackson after him, followed by Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, Big Ben. And none of those guys are who I'm going to talk about for this video, obviously. The guy I want to talk about, actually, I love his price because he's priced right under Jameis Winston, and that is Carson Wentz. I just talked about how Carson Wentz burned me, and I had my reasons for that. But most of those, actually all of those reasons were predicated on the New Orleans defense, not on Carson Wentz. He didn't play great, but New Orleans defense was on one for that game, as they were. As they are, they're turning their season around. I mean, they're looking like they were good versus Atlanta as well. So, I really like what New Orleans is doing defensively. I should have taken that into account a little heavier when I was recommending Carson Wentz last week. But this week, he's stepping into a very plum get-right matchup versus the Giants. He's at home. They're projected for 25 or let me see. I think that actually shot up. It opened that they were projected for 25 points, and now it's shot up to 26.5. So they're projected for 26.5 fantasy or real points, and you like the majority of that to come through the air. He's going up against a Giants defense that has been railed in the past few weeks, and that is all sort of secondary as to why I love him. You know, it's a great matchup. The Giants are 20th in the league versus the pass. Their number one cornerback, Janoris Jenkins, is not a number one cornerback. He's getting ripped apart every week. He's going to be he got ripped apart last week. He gave up 120 yards and a touchdown to Mike Evans. As I actually mentioned on Addy's Action, that Mike Evans was a really good play last week for that reason, as is Alshon Jeffrey this week, because he's going to draw Janoris Jenkins. But that's really it. All his pass catches are in awesome spots. It's a great matchup. They're at home. The Philly needs to win this game, and I think they're going to rely on who would have been MVP last year had he not gotten hurt, their best player. I think they're going to put the ball in his hands a lot. But the main reason I like him is it's a recency bias smash spot, because he was fairly chalky last week, as I had him as well, and he busted. So this is the absolute, the public, I should say, are not going to want to go back on that. They saw the game. They watched that game. It was a huge game, and it was miserable to watch. So I think that innately is going to lower his ownership. And then just coupled with the fact that he is essentially the same price as Jameis Winston. He's 100 cheaper. Kind of wish he was 100 more low-key so that people would really not pay for Carson Wentz over Jameis Winston. But he's 100 cheaper, and I think, as the ownership projections show, I think a lot of people are going to go towards Jameis Winston this week, and rightfully so. He's a really good play. But I think Carson Wentz is equally as good of a play for 100 cheaper. So really love Carson Wentz this week. And yeah, he will be the Addy's Action quarterback play of the week. Moving on to running back, though. Let me pull up some of these ownership projections for running backs. I can tell you already, it starts with Saquon Barkley. Actually, let me take that back. He is projected as slightly less than the top two guys. The top two guys right now are Nick Chubb and James Conner. Both good plays, although Nick Chubb for me is a little funky because he's kind of priced up at 6.3K for a back on DraftKings, at least, who doesn't really get a ton of receiving work. Most of that goes to Duke Johnson out of the backfield. He does get a good matchup, but he is on the road, and I believe they're underdogs in this game as well. So it's not that often that you'll find, they're 1-point underdogs. But it's not that often that you find a road dog as the chalkiest running back on DraftKings. So I'm not sure if that'll hold as we get to Sunday morning, especially because the guy I'm about to talk about, I just don't see a way. I was so shocked when I clicked on the ownership projections and he was outside of the top 10 because he is a lock for me. And he's projected to just not be owned on DraftKings. And I think he's honestly a better player than Nick Chubb, in my opinion. And he is almost 2,400 less. So let's scroll down here. I mean, the rest of the chalk is looking like Chubb, Connor, Saquon, Marlon Mack, who I thought was going to be unowned, and coming into this week, I thought he was going to be the guy I talked about. Really love Marlon Mack this week, but he's projecting as fairly chalky. Then McCaffrey, Breida, Mixon, Fournette, and then I'm gonna talk about my guys. So let's just get right to it. Scrolling all the way down here, 3,800, Josh Adams. So if y'all can't tell already, I am very high on the Philly offense this week. I think they smashed the Giants in what is a must-win game for them. They need to turn their season around, and I think it starts this week. They've got a really easy schedule coming up week 12 to 17. I could see them just sweeping the board across it, and I think it starts this week, and everyone knows they need this game. So, but let's talk about Josh Adams. So I have a few notes pulled up here on Josh Adams. If we click on his name, you'll be like, oh, he only got 7 carries. That's not great. Well, first off, horrible game script for him. They got absolutely plastered in a game where you just wouldn't run the ball. And he was going up against the best run defense in football in the New Orleans Saints, yet he still ripped off 7.6 yards per carry for a touchdown. His 28-yard touchdown run was honestly a thing of beauty. He broke the hole, and he was so quick to the end zone. Awesome running back, awesome talent. And they talked about earlier, prior to sort of this Josh Adams revelation, they talked about how he was the closest fit to Jay Ajayi out of all their running backs that they have, Smallwood and Clement, and how they would like to similarly use him like they do Jay Ajayi. But to get to the point that I was saying, despite the fact that he is their number one running back, and I think he will cement that this week as far as snap share goes and carries and targets go, he received 70% of their carries because they only ran the ball 10 times last week. So he received 70% of their carries. He received, I believe, 80 or 90% of their backfield targets with 6 targets, which is awesome. Because if he's getting 6 targets, he's a lock. But last week he was like a 12-point underdog in New Orleans. I think it was something like that. This week he's a 6-point home favorite. The New York Giants averaged, I believe, 3.8 yards per carry to running backs prior to trading Damon Harrison. After that number has jumped to over 5. For those of y'all who don't know who Damon Harrison is, his nickname is Snacks, and he is the best run stopper in the NFL. He was the past 2 years. He'll probably be again this year because of the fact that now that when the Giants traded him to the Lions went from what was a sieve of a run defense to actually a formidable run defense. It's almost like the Giants and the Lions just switched run defenses. The Giants went from pretty good to really bad, and the Lions went from really bad to pretty good. And that's all because of Snacks Harrison. And even without that, the Giants ranked 27th in the league versus running backs if you factor in the entire year. So, and that is with a lot of Damon Harrison playing for them. So, with that being said, Josh Adams at 3,800, I think I could project him comfortably for at least 15 carries on the ground. I think that's a very comfortable projection. If you're getting that alone at 3.8K, it's more than worth it. But if you're getting that in addition to what is looking like increased target shares, looking like they're going to try and use him as their like lead and maybe only back, I think Josh Adams is a smash play, and I'm gonna be locking him in. Speaking of that, just another note on that is Melvin Gordon is actually questionable, and so it's kind of looking like he may sit this game out, but we're not sure yet, and it is a 4 p.m. game, so if he does sit out, or if we have any inclination that he's going to sit out, Austin Eckler will be the chalkiest running back on DraftKings. And with that being said, even if all that does happen, the reason I'm even making this point, besides telling you that you should probably play Austin Eckler if that happens, is that you probably shouldn't even get off Josh Adams. If that happens, go ahead and play them both and then pay up at wide receiver. Switch it up. Everyone likes to pay up for a running back. This week, arguably the best running back is injured. Saquon, I mean, he's an awesome play, but he is 9,100 in a pretty crappy offense in a tough matchup on the road. McCaffrey a good play, Connor a good play, but there's no Gurley on this slate. There's no Kareem Hunt on this slate. There's a lot of elite running backs that are missing from this slate. So I think there is merit to paying down at both your running back positions and then going up and getting some real studs at wide receiver like Odell, AB, Mike Evans. But with that being said, honestly, let's just transition into wide receiver because I think that's enough on running back for this week. And so moving on to wide receiver, again, pulling up some more of these ownership projections. These ones currently have Odell Beckham as the chalkiest wide receiver on the slate. That's honestly rightfully so. I think Odell is in a pretty smash spot, which is kind of one of the reasons I'm not too high on Saquon. I really think Odell eats in this matchup. I think the passing game could really eat in this matchup. Let me just list for y'all who's missing for the Eagles. Ronald Darby, cornerback Ronald Darby, cornerback Jalen Mills, cornerback Sidney Jones, and cornerback Avonte Maddox. And that's their top 4 cornerbacks that are missing. Rasul Douglas, who is part of that group, he's in their top 5 cornerbacks. He is questionable. It's not looking like he's going to play either. So Odell's going to just be running routes against a bunch of misfits, and I really like that. I like him a lot. And so he is looking like the chalkiest wide receiver. Aside from that, T.Y. Hilton, a lot of people going after last game. He's in a great spot again this week. He'll be up against, he'll probably draw shadow coverage from Xavier Rhodes, but Xavier Rhodes runs like a 4.5 40, and that's no match for T.Y. Hilton, who is a speedster at home. DJ Moore is popping his chalk. That's because Devin Funchess and Torrey Smith. Devin Funchess is doubtful. Torrey Smith is out. So DJ Moore, after a massive week last week, obviously people are going right back to him at 4.6K as a number 1 wide receiver. He's a good play, but I got something for y'all on that, and I'll save that for a little bit. Keenan Allen after that, Mike Evans, Tyler Boyd, Emmanuel Sanders, Alshon, Josh Gordon coming in after that. And the fact that I just read off like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I read off 10 names there. And the fact that Antonio Brown wasn't one of those names means that he's the Addy's Action wide receiver of this week. Like I said earlier, this is a prime week to pay down at running back. There's a lot of good value here. I didn't even mention LaShawn McCoy, who I like as well, versus a Jags team that is giving up on the season and is going into a pretty hostile place to play in Buffalo. I don't think any of them are going to be up for this game. And LaShawn McCoy is sort of like a running back 1, unquestioned running back 1, priced at 4,200. So it's a good play there. But that's enough on running back. Talking about wide receiver, I think it's a good week to pay down at running back, which would entail that you could pay up for multiple wide receivers this week. As far as like you can get Odell Beckham, who I love, like I said, and you can play Antonio Brown as well. Antonio Brown runs 81% of his routes on the outside, so he will avoid Chris Harris, who's typically a stationary slot cornerback. He doesn't really travel outside too much, and he is the only good cornerback on Denver. I'm a Broncos fan, so I know that. Bradley Roby is bad, and we cut Pac-Man Jones, so there's no really good cornerbacks over there. And I think Antonio Brown probably smashes in this matchup. This game has the Steelers are currently projected to score 25.25 points and the Broncos 22.25. So it's a fairly close game, which I think will keep them throwing. I do like the Broncos to hang in this game a bit. The game is in Denver, which they typically do play better. So I project pretty good game script for Antonio Brown. And the fact of the matter is, if this guy isn't going to be one of the top 10 highest owned wide receivers on DraftKings.com come Sunday, you should just play him. Because we haven't seen Antonio Brown have a boom week yet, like one of those 40-point weeks that he does multiple times last season. I think his most fantasy points scored is 31 on DraftKings, and that was versus Atlanta, a game in which he got 13 targets, which I think he could reach in this matchup as well. His fellow wide receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster, is going to draw a much tougher matchup versus Chris Harris in the slot. So I think that helps Antonio Brown as well. And he's probably it's very close between, because I think the ownership shows the Odell as the clear number 1 wide receiver on this slate. I think it is a very, very close argument, and you could probably put Antonio Brown on top of him just because he's got a better quarterback thrown at him, an equally good matchup, and it's Antonio Brown. So just play him. So he'll be the Addy's Action wide receiver of the week, but I do understand how that's kind of like a cop-out. I just picked like the second highest price guy, Antonio Brown, who's amazing, and called him a GPP play because he's not going to be that owned. But he's going to make it in all of my lineups. But let me give y'all another play just because that is, it's kind of an easy call for me. And scrolling down here, this is what I was talking about when I mentioned DJ Moore. DJ Moore is an awesome play this week, but we've seen this Carolina offense. It's not really one that features a number one wide receiver. I mean, their number one wide receiver is technically Funchess, but any given week, anyone on that team can eat. It's a reason that you don't really like to stack up Carolina or like pair Cam with a wide receiver or something, because it's hard to tell who's going to get the usage. Like, it could go to Greg Olsen, it could go to Christian McCaffrey. Cam could score rushing touchdowns. He could throw the ball to a host of different guys. North Turner is very creative. But with that being said, if DJ Moore is going to be incredible chalk this week, I don't think, I do think pivoting down to Curtis Samuel is a pretty good idea. Curtis Samuel will now take over, assuming Devin Funchess is out. And knowing Torrey Smith is out, DJ Moore becomes the number one wide receiver, and Curtis Samuel becomes the number 2 wide receiver. So he really does see the biggest boost. If we're talking straight snap share wise, he's going to see the biggest boost. It's not going to be DJ Moore, because DJ Moore is already playing a bunch of snaps. So he's basically just getting locked into a slight target boost, maybe a good matchup. It is a good matchup, but maybe a slightly, or I should say he should see slightly more targets, slight more routes run, etc. But majority should go to Curtis Samuel as far as the biggest increase, and he's sitting at 3.8K. Last week they used him more as a traditional wide receiver as opposed to like how they typically use him as a gadget guy. I don't know if you guys remember that 50-something yard touchdown, or I think it was 50-something yard, might have been like 30-something yard touchdown run Curtis Samuel had a couple weeks ago where he kind of like ran the whole field just to score it. That's typically the role they like to use him in, as like a gadget guy, but this week they're going to be forced to elevate him to their second wide receiver spot. He will be matched up primarily against Trey Flowers, and actually I'm spacing on the other cornerback's name. Let me find it because I had my notes written. He'll be sized up primarily against or lined up primarily against Trey Flowers and Shaq Griffin, who are both decent cornerbacks, but the one thing they both have in common is they're both pretty big, both pretty slow cornerbacks. And that's not a good fit against a North Turner offense that really takes advantage of guys' speed and ability. So, I mean, if we just go to playerprofiler.com, we're typing in Curtis Samuel, and we're just going to pull up his metrics. So we see that this guy, 4.3, 140, that's in the 100th percentile. He's one of the fastest guys in the NFL. He is primed to absolutely destroy Seattle and their slow cornerbacks. I think Curtis Samuel is an awesome play. Honestly, he's not that much far off DJ Moore. DJ Moore is an incredible play this week, and I don't think Curtis Samuel is that far off of that. And you're getting him at a steep discount, and you're going to get him virtually next to nothing owned, despite the fact that he's the guy that really gets the biggest boost without Funchess and Torrey Smith. All right, I think that's enough on wide receiver this week. A few other things I can talk about, like a few other guys I like, but I won't go into them too much. Golden Tate probably shouldn't be 4,800. He's in an awesome matchup versus the Giants. We've already talked about this. I could definitely see him making it to my lineup. He should probably be making it to most of y'all's. Alshon Jeffrey, same reason. Janoris Jenkins, 5,800. He is an awesome play. If Doug Baldwin misses, I like Tyler Lockett. This Carolina defense blitzes a ton. And Russell Wilson is the best quarterback in the league versus the blitz. So I like Tyler Lockett. I like David Moore as well. If not DJ, that's David Moore if Doug Baldwin were to miss. But yeah, Adam Humphries also a good play. He sees increased target. He sees an increased target share, increased looks with Jameis Winston at quarterback, and he's stepping into a pretty good matchup as well. But yeah, I think that's good on wide receiver for the week. If you have any more questions, just tweet me. But let's move on to tight end. So at tight end, the chalk is looking like Cameron Brate, George Kittle, Zach Ertz, Greg Olsen. Those are the top 4 guys I see. And they're all really good plays. Cameron Brate because no O.J. Howard, and Jameis Winston loves to target his tight end, and he has a connection with Cameron Brate, so he's an awesome play. George Kittle, similarly so. Nick Mullins loves George Kittle. He's stepping into a great matchup as well. Zach Ertz, a smash play as well. I think all of Philly eats. I think there's going to be enough to go around. I think they score like 5 touchdowns. So, I think there's going to be enough to go around for everyone, Zach Ertz included. Greg Olsen, obviously, he sees a big bump as well with Funchess and Torrey Smith out. So, and he's stepping into a good matchup versus Seattle as well. So, all 4 of those chalk plays are good plays. And obviously, I mean, that's why they're chalk. Me personally, if Gronk plays, which he said he's going to, I'm gonna just lock in Gronk. He's 5,100. If he plays, I'm playing him. He's going up against the Jets, who rank 15th in the league versus the tight end. But if you go through their matchups, they have played no good tight end, like barely any. I think their best tight end they face is Njoku, and that might have been before Baker was even quarterback. So they haven't faced anything yet. They're still ranked 15th in the league versus tight end. So I really like Rob Gronkowski, obviously, and he's just $2,000 cheaper than he started the season. So regardless if he's banged up, they did get the bye week to get him right. So I don't think he's too banged up anymore. I just think you should play Gronk at 5,100. Just do that. But with that being said, I think Gronk, once he's officially in, I think he'll end up being one of the chalkier tight ends. So I'll give you a few other guys I like. I like Jeff Hoyerman here. We saw him receive 11 targets the first game without Demaryius Thomas, followed up by 5 targets versus the Chargers. Those are both usage bumps, obviously, with the DT trade. I think the Houston one might be more of an anomaly, but I think in this matchup, we could see him fall into the 7-8 target range. Like I talked about, they're projected to be trailing to a good Pittsburgh team. But a Pittsburgh team that funnels targets to the tight end position. I have it pulled up right here on Player Profiler. That was the last tab. On FootballOutsiders.com, I have it filtered by pass attempts per game to the tight end position. And currently 4th in the league is Pittsburgh at 8.1. So they do filter a lot of targets to the tight end. And I think he's a good play as well at 3.4K. But I think for this price, I'd just rather play Brait. But going a little cheaper here, I like Chris Herndon this week. Looking at pace, it's one of the first things I always look at when I look at any sport, really, like basketball, football, even hockey. Pace is so important. And I like to see which teams have the biggest pace up bumps, meaning they're a slow pace team going into faster pace team. This week, the fastest pace team in the league is New England. They have a 26.7 seconds per neutral play time. That's 0.6 seconds faster than the second slowest team. So they play fast. The slowest team in the league is the New York Jets. So you have a 30-second pace team to a first pace team. That is a massive pace up spot. That is as big as it gets. It's the biggest pace up spot you could ask for in football. So I think Chris Herndon at 2.9K versus a New England team that leads the league in touchdown, leads the AFC in touchdowns allowed. I think it's 7. They're 11th in the league in yards allowed. They, as I also have it up on FootballOutsiders.com, they are 3rd in the league in pass attempts per game to the tight end position, right above Pittsburgh. So I think Chris Herndon, who's basically the tight end 1 on this team, and you're getting him at 2,900 in a great matchup, I think he's an awesome play this week. And fun fact, you can pair him with his quarterback, Josh McCown, who's sitting at 4,300. You can pair both of them up for less than 8K, just barely over 7K. What is that, 7.2K? That's crazy. That's a good stack for 7.2K. So I really like that stack in GPPs. I think this game has sneaky shootout potential. So yeah, I like Chris Herndon a lot this week. And we'll go ahead and make him the Addy's Action tight end of the week. Although, like I said, if Gronk is in and healthy, which he is and probably will be, then I'm just playing Gronk. That's that. But anyways, let's move on to defense. I'm at right around 29 minutes, so we'll keep it quick on defense because, as I always say, I'm not in the business of projecting defensive ownership. It doesn't really concern me too much. Defense is such a high variance position that anything can happen any week. Just play who you like, play who you think is going to get pressure. This week, chalky defenses. I'm looking at the Ravens, the Bills, the Chargers, the Patriots, the Bengals. Again, it doesn't really matter too much to me. I think if you want to fade the Giants, I think the Eagles are in a decent spot. Even though they're banged up, they do get a ton of pressure. They do have a good defensive front, so I think that's a good spot as well. You can go with the Broncos for cheap as well if you want to fade. If you want to buy into the sort of Big Ben on the road narrative, he's stepping into a really difficult place to play in Mile High. Then you could go with the Broncos if you like that. I like the Bills as well, like I talked about. I think Jacksonville has nothing to play for. I don't think any of those boys over there really care too much. So I like the Bills, and it pairs well with a LaShawn McCoy play. I think that's a good sneaky correlation stack for GPPs as well. I like the Colts versus Miami, who's getting back Ryan Tannehill. Doesn't make much of a difference for their offense. It's a pretty lazily coached offense. So I like the Colts here as well. They pair well with Marlon Mack. So yeah, go with whoever you like at defense. But I think some of these cheap defenses are definitely in play. If you just want to, if you go cheap at defense, go cheap at running back, you can get everything you want. Whatever tight end you want, whatever wide receivers you want, whatever quarterback you want, you can do that. So with that all being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in to Week 12's edition of Addy's Action. Again, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit like, go ahead and hit comment, subscribe. And again, you can follow me on Twitter at ReallyAddy. This is where I'll interact with all of y'all on Sunday, just in case you do have 1v1s or 2v2s or any questions you want to ask. But yeah, so y'all take it easy. Have a good Week 12 and win some money this week. Peace.